So, Sparking Zero just came out, and I wanted to talk about it since I haven't been able to stop playing it for the past 3 days.
Wait a minute. Where's the artwork?
Yeah, actually, about that, there is no artwork for this video.
Ugh, I knew you'd get lazy.
Demonically inspired.
Okay, guys, calm down. Look, while I'd love to have 30-40 drawings in every video, unfortunately, sometimes I get burnt out, or tired, or procrastinate. Well, in this case, it's all three. And I still have to draw stuff for the ReZero video where the designs look like this. So, sometimes, not always, I will do some videos that may not have my art. But that doesn't mean your mom and I still don't love you. That being said, another reason I wanted to do this video first is because it's quite fresh in my memory right now. And I just wanted to blurt out my first thoughts on the game before I play it more and let that shape my opinion. So, Sparking Zero. Let's start with some positivity for once. It's good. I really like this game. I mentioned in my last video that Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was a huge part of my childhood. Well, that was an understatement if I'm being honest. See, I may not play Tenkaichi 2 and 3 much these days, but like 5 or 7 years ago, me and my buddies would all gather at my place to play Tenkaichi 3 with the Yamcha games on and have the most intense tournaments. So my opinion on Sparking Zero will be from the perspective of a Budokai Tenkaichi veteran, so to speak. And in that regard, I think this game nails it. It has everything that made the original Budokai Tenkaichi series good. And then there was so much more that they added to the game as well. It truly is a modern day successor to the Budokai Tenkaichi series. Honestly, I was feeling like Gohan. Out of practice for so many years and suddenly thrust into battle, and I was trying to regain my battle instincts. In fact, for those accustomed to the old style of gameplay control schemes, you can still use the old control scheme in this game. However, honestly, in my opinion, the new standard controls just suit the new game much better. Now, this is not to say that the old controls were bad, but the new game has a few new additions to the combat and the defensive abilities that personally, I feel like the new standard controls flow much better with. Stuff like perception, super perception, and so on. And while I've heard from new players that they faced an input lag when trying to do supers from a combo, personally I've never had that issue. Now it might be because I'm used to how the Tenkaichi games work, and let's be honest, the style may be somewhat different from most modern day arena fighters. But I think that's something people will get better at with time. The game has a good balance of difficulty, with it being simple enough that new players can rush through the story mode with simple gameplay and lower difficulty should they choose. And the game also has a lot of variety to its combat so new players can learn and grow. It's kind of fitting for a Dragon Ball game. The more you fight, the more you improve. I also really love the way fights go in this game. This might be the most fast-paced action in a Dragon Ball game to this very day. It really feels like watching Goku vs Cell when you do vanish counters and super counters back to back, and the action is just so fast and full of energy. It feels really good, man. The one thing I will fault the game for, however, is its AI. See, the CPU enemies aren't particularly tough or challenging. They're just kind of cheating a lot of the time during the campaign. And it's hard to critique this because AI behavior is so inconsistent in this game. So you'd have one fight where the enemy AI just counters everything you do with a frame perfect reaction and input reads you no matter what you do. And then you'd have another fight where the AI just stands there and hits a whole rush and also an ultimate for no reason. And while for most enemies it's easy to adapt to this by learning how to play with more skilled gameplay style rather than spamming square, I can understand why it would be frustrating for new players who haven't had a chance to get adapted to the Tenkaichi style of combat, especially when the game straight up starts with Raditz who... The AI for Raditz just straight up input reads you at every turn. It will counter your counters, it will attack you. And not to mention he also has hyper armor, so your regular rush attacks don't even damage... well, it still damages him. It doesn't phase him until he gets stunned. And while we're at it, I'll just mention Great Ape Vegeta 2 briefly. See, in the original Tenkaichi games too, the fight against giant characters was generally tough. You'd need a Super Saiyan 3 level character or above to damage any giant character with a rush attack. However, with that power, there was also a change in speed in the old games. It made the fights more manageable. In Sparking Zero, Great Ape Vegeta is really fast. And it's only been a few fights in Goku's campaign before you face him. So most players haven't had a chance to really get used to the new style of combat. There's also the factor that generally campaign enemies or bosses start with like 4 or 5 bars of ki, and they just start off with a super attack that most players would have a difficult time countering if they are not used to the combat system of the game. By the way, does anyone think that it's kind of odd that this game does not have any ready or start fight commands when the fight begins? Like, an announcer or something? I mean, it's not a critique or anything, nothing wrong with that. It just seems kind of odd considering every Dragon Ball game till date has had that. I mean, in this one, it's just like the character introductions happen and then boom, you're just into the fight, throwing hands. I don't know, maybe I'm just old. Anyway, back to the combat stuff. Something I really like about the new game is the clashes. Unlike what most people before launch kept crying about on Reddit and Twitter, every beam clash does not destroy the dimension, guys. Only ultimates do. And I think that's alright. It's no big deal, to be honest. And actually, you know what? I'll get back to that in a bit when I talk about the game's visuals. But yeah, clashes are great. I like that there's different types of clashes depending on whether you do a quick dash, a dragon dash, beam clash, or grabs. And they all look really, really cool. And while on occasion the grab clash will bug out sometimes if your character positions are unfortunate, it's honestly no harm done and it just looks silly. All in all, aside from some minor nitpicks, the combat is a solid 9 out of 10 for me. It's easy to get into, but just hard enough that you need a skill level to actually be good at it. Now, let's talk about the visuals of this game. This game is pretty. And I mean really, really pretty. In fact, in my personal opinion, this is the best looking Dragon Ball game to date. Yes, even more so than Fighters and Kakarot. At least for me. Looking at the characters' hair and clothes move during super moves and charging ki with such fluidity is absolutely gorgeous. I like how the game uses the visual style of the superior Broly movie. No, I will not explain myself here, have a good day. I really like that style. It especially works really well when transforming or using ultimates where you can see the characters clearly. It's funny that people kept taking very specific screenshots of the game before it launched and talking about how bad the lighting and shading looks on a frame or two here and there. And it's like, guys, do not speculate shit about any game until it's out, especially not when it's literal months away from release. As a 3D artist, let me tell you, changes come in every day. I mean, literally every day. The art director may come in and give you a new notes every single day.
You've got to do better.
Whatever you see in a trailer will most likely never match the final release. That being said, I do think that the people hate the models of this game for no reason sometimes, with the critique being that the models look too skinny, which I don't really see it because personally, if you hate the models in this game, you probably hate the models in Kakarot, which also looked fairly skinny. In fact, the models in Kakarot even look a bit less defined compared to this game. Honestly, this kind of stuff is exactly why I don't like to speculate and debate on the quality of a product before it's released. Now, granted, there are exceptions to this rule, and I'll get to you someday. Probably. Man, I really don't want to play that game. But anyway, I personally like the leaner looking models because I love the art style of Dragon Ball Super Broly. And while it's an interesting choice to have that one art style for all of Dragon Ball Z and Super, it's certainly not a bad one and doesn't affect the overall experience. Though I do wish that since we have so many versions of Goku, we also got a few new models of Goku that were kind of made in the respective art style of where those models were placed in the story. Like for example, how Goku's eyes used to be much rounder and his face used to be a bit more skinnier in the early parts of Dragon Ball Z because the design was carried over from original Dragon Ball. But anyway, all these special grabs, melee supers and ultimates are very beautifully animated and make the characters really look amazing. Especially since they are all so expressive, the special effects and lighting look as good as can be in the game and personally do not get repetitive at all during gameplay, which is something I was worried about since modern Dragon Ball games do not play like Tenkaichi. The melee supers have also been completely redone compared to Budokai Tenkaichi 3 and 2, and every move is just no longer a rehash of Meteor Smash. So all in all, the visuals are lovely. Now that I've spent the last half of this video glazing Sparking Zero, let's talk about the stuff I really didn't like. Because wouldn't you know it? Just because something is good doesn't mean it can't be critiqued. I really wish more die-hard fans of any media understood that, but whatever. So, what I do not like about Sparking Zero is the story mode. The campaign or the story mode is handled so poorly in this game that I have to imagine that they either had to rush the development at some point or they just didn't care about the story mode. Now, before I move on, full disclosure, I have only played the episodes of Goku, Vegeta, Goku Black, Jiren, and Frieza so far. So I'm not sure how the rest are handled, but I want to talk about my experience so far. So let's talk about some general stuff. The episode format just sucks. It really feels like it doesn't fit in this game. I don't think it's good. Because first of all, you have to go through most of the same story multiple times. But second of all, it's just handled very poorly. It reminds me of Supersonic Warriors and Budokai 3, but not done as well. See, in those old games, character journeys had their own full story modes, both that follow the canon story, but also have a lot of branching what-if paths from various points. Now, I know it sounds similar to what we have right now, but the thing is, those games didn't skip out on major canon fights for any character. And this is where I want to bring up Vegeta. Vegeta is the biggest goddamn victim of this entire system from my experience. Goku's story mode covers almost every single fight he had from the beginning of Z with Raditz to the end of Super with with Jiren. Vegeta, on the other hand, gets really badly shafted. His story doesn't even start in the Saiyan saga, it starts in the Frieza saga. You fight Kui, not Dodoria. You fight Zarbon, but not Ginyu Goku. You don't even get to fight Force Form Frieza, who Vegeta is the only character who tried fighting. And okay, let's say that it's not a big deal. It's whatever. You know what the biggest crime of this game is? Vegeta has no story after Z. He gets nothing from Super. No Beerus, no Gold Frieza, no Black Goku, no Toppo, no Jiren. Characters who, by the way, are specifically characters Vegeta has interacted with in important moments of the story. It's just ridiculous. Considering Vegeta is basically the second protagonist of Super, it's even more frustrating because both Jiren and Goku Black have fights against Vegeta in their respective story modes. Oh yeah, Jiren, the guy with the personality of a rock, has a story mode for the Tournament of Power, but Vegeta doesn't. It's so stupid. And the worst part is, none of the story mode has any cutscenes. It's just slideshows. What If Stories gets a few cutscenes, but even then it's nothing fancy and frankly kind of cheap looking. And I know you guys might think, oh, who cares? It's just the story of Dragon Ball Z. We've seen that hundreds of times. And besides, even Budokai Tenkaichi 3 didn't have any cutscenes. And you'd be right, except this is the first game to cover the entirety of Dragon Ball Super in the base game too. Not to mention, this is a fully priced game. It is 90 Canadian dollars right now. I just expected a bit more polish with the story mode of this game, and the problem with this character episode format is that you really never get to see some of the cool fights in the story because they don't have their own episodes. So we don't get to see Nappa versus the Earthlings, we don't get to see Krillin destroying all the Cybermen, we don't get to see TN versus Cell, we don't get to see Goten versus Trunks at the World Tournament. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of how the game handles the story mode. Now that being said, the what ifs that we are given are fairly solid. Having Goku go Super Saiyan on Earth against Vegeta, or Vegeta coming to Earth and allying with everyone to face Frieza is cool. I really like it. Not to mention Vegeta's amazing what if storyline where he resists the Majin brainwashing. By the way, is it weird that all of Vegeta's what ifs are stuff that he would write in his own fanfiction? Like the parent and child one where, oh, instead of Goku and Gohan, Vegeta was the one who beat Cell. Or how he was the one who defeated Boo. And in every single story, it ends with him being stronger than Goku. It honestly sounds like stuff he writes in his own diary at night to make himself feel better. But that's just me. Back to the topic though. Personally, I feel like it would have been better that they went with the Budokai Tenkaichi 2 or 3 approach combined with the current system, where you'd follow the main story as is regardless of character, but depending on victory conditions and stuff, you'd unlock other character POVs in the same saga or unlock other what ifs. I think that would have worked much better. That said, this is the only big issue I had with the game. Overall, it's very enjoyable and quite frankly an addictive game. It's super fun, and frankly, grinding ranked online has never been a thing I do, not even for fighters, but for this game I am. So, if you like the old Budokai Tenkaichi games, or if you like Dragon Ball in general, I'd highly recommend giving this game a chance. But regardless, this video is actually getting way too long for me. So let me know what you guys thought about Sparking Zero in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I'd be doing more videos like this soon. I'll probably go back to my old format of artwork on the next video, but hey, who knows. I generally just prefer making videos on whatever I want to talk about, so, there's no real schedule there. But regardless, consider checking out my old video on why I don't like the story of Dragon Ball Xenoverse, or maybe consider watching my video on why I think Finn in Spider-Man Miles Morales is a bad character. There's also some Persona stuff in my channel if you're interested in that. This is Demonically Inspired, signing out.